Welcome back everybody to another Warframe build video. Today we are going Supernova and taking a look at Nova Prime. Nova is the antimatter Warframe that is of course a generalized caster style frame. You have low shield capacity, somewhat decent health, and very low defensive stats and abilities, but she is a very offensively powerful Warframe, and once you see what the abilities are, you'll understand why. Nova's first ability is called Null Star. This creates a group of antimatter particles that surround Nova and will go out and seek enemies that come within range. The particles will fire only one at a time, and under normal use, it cannot be recast until all particles are used, unless you use the Neutron Star augment, which allows you to recast it, detonating the remaining particles. The damage is affected by your power strength mods, as well as multipliers on the body parts that get hit. So headshots will still deal higher damage even if you hit them with one of the Null Star particles. Particle count gets affected by your power duration rather than your efficiency or range. And of course, power range affects the radius at which the particles will detect and fire at enemies, but doesn't affect the range that they rotate around you. Null Star particles are not exactly very strong. They're not going to do a huge amount of damage. So early off, in lower level enemies, Null Star may work well, but against armor enemies and of course higher level enemies, they're not going to be able to do very much damage. And as you can see, against even a level 20 heavy gunner, it takes several of them to kill the heavy gunner. Nova's second ability is called Antimatter Drop, which launches a controlled particle of antimatter that will detonate on collision. Now, this particle behaves a little differently than the ones from Null Star in that it will move slowly towards wherever your reticule is targeting, and it will move slowly, which allows you to fire your weapon at it. Hitting it with your weapon will in effect charge it up, creating a much more powerful effect. Once it reaches maximum charge, it will change color and move faster towards where your reticule is aimed. The particle can also be charged by weapon fire from your allies, and if you use the antimatter absorb augment, it will cause the particle to absorb incoming enemy fire, which will help it reach its maximum charge faster. Damage and damage absorption are affected by power strength, so a slow Nova will deal a lot more damage than a negative strength speed Nova build. So keep this in mind when you are choosing how to build your Warframe, because a speed Nova build will do less damage with this ability. On impact, the particle will explode, dealing damage based on body part multipliers as well as bypassing obstacles with no damage decrease over distance. Power range does not affect the travel distance or explosion radius of the particle, so don't think maxing out your range is going to help. One particle can absorb up to 50,000 damage currently. You can fire multiple particles of antimatter drop at the same time, however, they will all still travel towards where your reticule is aimed. Maxing out your antimatter absorbs particle damage is going to be easiest with weapons that deal a high amount of damage quickly. Nova's third ability, Wormhole, creates a wormhole, surprisingly, that allows for instant travel between one point to the next. Basically, it's a portal that lets you travel to an exit point 50 meters away. You can make up to 4 wormholes at a single time, and each wormhole will collapse after either 16 seconds at max rank or 4 uses of the wormhole at max rank. Your power duration mods will increase the time duration of the wormhole, but not the number of uses, so you will still be limited to 4 uses. Power range will only affect the targeting range but not the travel range, meaning that you can target further away than 50 meters, but you will still only be able to travel 50 meters. Allies and enemies can both travel through wormholes. The escape velocity augment is very popular for using with wormhole because it adds a 50% speed increase for 7 seconds in addition to the travel distance of the wormhole itself, and this augment is typically used with speed builds for doing speed runs. Okay, last and certainly not least is Nova's fourth ability, Molecular Probe. This radiates out a wave of antimatter that charges all enemies in its radius, and making them very explosive. Basically, this sends out a wave of energy from your Nova that primes the enemies with antimatter, making them explode with killed. A primed enemy will take 200% from all damage sources. So this doubles the amount of damage you are dealing to them or dealing to each other should they blow up. A positive power strength Nova build will slow enemies down, whereas a negative power strength Nova build will speed enemies up. Both styles of build will still cause enemies to explode when killed, but a negative power strength build will do less damage from the explosion. Power range will affect your explosion radius of the enemies, but not the range of the antimatter wave. Power duration will increase the range of the wave as the wave moves outward at a fixed rate of 5 meters per second. Duration also gets increased on how long your enemies remain primed for damage. Two popular builds based around this are typically referred to as a Slowva, or a positive strength Nova build that slows down enemies, providing crowd control and high damage from the explosions. And then you have a Speed Nova build, which is a negative strength build, popular for doing quick defensive runs, especially with infested, due to the fact that they will speed up and move in closer to the central point where they can be killed quicker. Moving on to the builds, my first build is a Slowva build. This is again based around the idea of slowing enemies down and dealing a lot of damage. So you can see I have a high power strength and a high duration. As I said, Molecular Prime's distance is based not around range but your duration. So the longer that you have your duration going, the longer it's going to spread out, keeping enemies primed to be receiving better damage. Because I use Prime Flow, I am not worried about efficiency with this build. One thing to be careful about with this sort of build, because of the higher duration, if you are in a certain size map for a defensive mission, be careful that you do not end up nerfing the spawn points, because by having such a high duration, you may cover the entire map and make your teammates very angry in that you are slowing down the mission progress significantly, with all enemies being pretty much locked at their spawn points and taking forever to get out where they can be killed. Okay, my second build is of course a Speed Nova build, because if you're going to have the positive power strength build, you also have to have the negative power strength build. Now in this case, I have done things a little differently. You can see I still have a very high duration, because again, that affects how far out your Molecular Prime will go and how many enemies are affected. By having more range so that your explosions can hit more enemies at the same time and potentially trigger them to explode, creating a larger chain effect, that helps to mitigate the fact that you have such a low power strength on this. Okay, my last build is a speedrun build. I don't tend to use this really hardly ever, except on capture missions where I just want to get through, capture the target, and then get out. But as you can see, I have changed it around. Now, because in most cases I am not able to see, and especially in the maps, you're not going to always have a large room where you can see 50 meters in advance or further. I have gone with a lower range on this, which allows me to just pop through the wormhole really quickly. And of course, I do have the escape velocity augment, which gives me a speed boost after I have gone through the wormhole. Of course, efficiency, because I will be casting it a lot. And duration to allow the wormhole to last longer, which of course allows for my teammates to go through the wormhole and get the same boost from escape velocity. Okay, that's it for my Nova Prime video. I hope you take these builds and do your own variation of them, because this is Warframe. You need to build it around what you prefer. If you do want to copy one of my builds, that's fine, but I encourage you to play your way. This is the set of builds that work for me. Primarily, I'm a Slowva, but every now and then I'll go and run a Speed Nova in the right situation. You may be different. You may want to be a Speedrun Nova the whole time. She is a very capable Warframe, especially when she ties in with other Warframes, providing both damage increase and crowd control. If you liked the video, be sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit subscribe and tick the notification bell if you haven't already done that, so you can keep up with all my content during the week. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with all my posting there. And as always, thanks everyone for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.